Greetings, I'm Alice, a 32-year-old soon-to-be mom, eagerly anticipating the arrival of my baby. Today finds my husband and me on our way to his family's house, a cozy 30-minute drive from our apartment. We make this trip regularly, usually a couple of times a month. Today's visit is prompted by the enticing news that my mother-in-law is whipping up her renowned apple pie. She's a kind soul, having endured the loss of her husband just last year. Despite the hardship, she's bounced back and is now eagerly awaiting the arrival of her grandchild. However, not everyone shares in our joy about the impending arrival of our child. One such person is my sister-in-law, Brianna. According to my mother-in-law, Brianna tied the knot 6 years before us, yet there's been no sign of her own pregnancy. Despite undergoing fertility treatments for the past 2 years, she's still without a child. The mounting pressure has left her noticeably irritable as of late. My mother-in-law had advised us to steer clear of Brianna whenever possible, so we usually timed our visits to coincide with her absence. Yet, much to her surprise, Brianna made an unexpected appearance on this particular day. "Long time no see, Alice. You've put on some weight, haven't you? You're not just lazing around at home because you're pregnant, right? You look like a seal, all round and ready to roll down a hill," she remarked sharply, catching me off guard. "Hey sis, how can you say something like that right off the bat? She's 9 months pregnant, of course her belly's gonna be big. You're gonna make enemies with pregnant women all over the world talking like that," my husband interjected, coming to my defense and leaving me momentarily speechless. "Oh, please, I'm just thinking about Alice, okay? It's tough if a pregnant woman gets too heavy, you know. I just want Alice to be aware of her responsibilities as a mother," she asserted. Knowing that arguing back would only escalate the situation, I held my tongue. "Thank you, sister-in-law. You're right, I'll be more mindful," I responded in a conciliatory tone, though she huffed in dissatisfaction. "Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you can be lazy. So start cleaning this house right now. You're lacking exercise, right? You can at least do that much," she insisted, thrusting a broom and dustpan into my hands. But after being reprimanded by both my mother-in-law and my husband for her behavior, she retreated to an upstairs room in a sulk. "I'm sorry, Alice. She just turned up unannounced. I asked her to leave." My mother-in-law apologized with a regretful expression. "It's all right, mother-in-law. I'm not bothered," I reassured her. "I'm sorry, Alice. That's just how my sister is," my husband chimed in, echoing his mother's apology. Following that, we enjoyed a pleasant time together, relishing the apple pie my mother-in-law had baked and sipping tea. We even called out to Brianna, but received no response. Despite our concerns, she never made an appearance. Little did I know that a harrowing incident was about to unfold just days later. I found myself at my in-laws' house alone, needing to speak with my mother-in-law. As I entered through the unlocked front door, I encountered Brianna in the living room. "Sister-in-law, what brings you here? I thought you had to work today," I inquired. "I wasn't feeling up to it, so I took the day off. And I must say, I'm surprised to see you here. You interrupted my cleaning last time. Now, please get back to work," she retorted, thrusting the broom and dustpan into my hands. To avoid any confrontation, I began cleaning despite feeling discomfort since early morning. As I worked, the pain in my stomach intensified. Just as I contemplated taking a break, my sister-in-law delivered a forceful kick to my abdomen, causing my water to break. The agony surged and I collapsed on the floor. "Help, someone please," I cried out in pain, fumbling for my phone to dial my mother-in-law. "The baby, in trouble?" I managed to gasp before blacking out. When consciousness returned, I found myself in a hospital bed, an IV coursing fluids into my arm, and the warmth of an electric blanket enveloping my body. "Where am I? What about my baby?" I attempted to rise, but the ache in my abdomen thwarted my efforts. To my astonishment, my once prominent belly had diminished considerably, leaving me bewildered. Summoning the nurse with the press of a button, I sought answers. The nurse arrived, explaining that my water had broken, necessitating an emergency cesarean delivery. Though my infant was premature, they assured me of the baby's stable condition within an incubator. Upon hearing the news, my mother-in-law and husband, who had hurried to the hospital, wore expressions colored with fury, mirroring my own shock. Resolving to visit my child once my strength returned, I devoted myself to rest, striving to hasten my recovery. The following day, an unexpected pair invaded my hospital room without a courteous knock. My sister-in-law, the very same who had inflicted harm upon me, along with her husband, barged in with audacious entitlement. I scowled at their brazen intrusion, a sense of foreboding settling over me as they proposed a shocking notion. Let's settle this. We'll compensate you. Their suggestion sent a shiver down my spine, and when I declined, they launched a barrage of offensive remarks towards my weary countenance, still recovering from the cesarean procedure. Anger boiled within me as I contemplated the ordeal my daughter had endured at their hands. A settlement? Is this a joke? I won't be bought off. I'll ensure you face the consequences, I declared, inciting their wrath as they hurled insults at me. What? How dare you speak to us like that? We're offering a solution, showing mercy. Shouldn't you be grateful, Alice? Have your parents not taught you to respect your elders? Just agree quietly, my brother-in-law chimed in, aggravating the tension. Lost in our heated exchange, oblivious to our surroundings, the door suddenly swung open with a loud creak, startling us all. I've heard everything. I'm sorry, but I have absolutely no intention of settling. My husband's commanding presence, accentuated by his sturdy frame and towering stature, resonated in his deep voice. They appeared caught off guard by his sudden appearance, their confidence shaken. Ah, long time no see, Finn. It's a coincidence to meet you here. My brother-in-law attempted to feign casualness, though his tense expression betrayed him. Indeed, quite the coincidence, my husband responded evenly, his tone masking the tension in the room. I didn't expect to meet you here, and I never imagined I'd hear such words from you too. I would appreciate an explanation. We were all in the room when they said it, so there's no room for any excuses. I voiced my disbelief, feeling a mix of shock and betrayal. Hey, don't be so angry, Finn. It's not like we had ill intentions. We just feel bad for what we did to Alice. That's why we're offering money, hoping to settle this out of court, my sister-in-law explained, her voice trembling with guilt. But my husband's fury remained unabated. The one who decides whether this will be a settlement or not is Alice, not you. Besides, do you think this is a situation that can be solved with money? Alice had an emergency C-section, the baby's in an incubator. You endangered both their lives. Do you even understand that? My husband erupted, his emotions boiling over. I, too, found it impossible to forgive them simply because they offered compensation. I echo my husband's sentiments. No amount of money can rectify this. You'll face the consequences of your actions. My sister-in-law seemed to believe that throwing money at us would absolve them of their guilt. But this situation was far from simple. Thankfully, both my daughter and I, though she was in an incubator, were safe. But had there been any misstep, our situation could have been dire. It appeared my sister-in-law was completely unaware of this, a fact that likely troubled my brother-in-law as well. Reflecting on this, I realized I couldn't easily forgive them or entertain the notion of a settlement. My sister-in-law, upon hearing my stance, erupted, her voice rising. What do you mean? This is all her fault. She knew I couldn't conceive, yet she flaunted her pregnancy in front of me. Was that some sort of taunt? I was furious, and I did what I did to ensure she wouldn't dare to provoke me like that again. Now I understood why she had lashed out at me, but there was a perplexing detail that didn't add up. I hadn't crossed paths with her frequently during my pregnancy, and whenever we did meet, she promptly retreated to her room, avoiding any interaction. So how had she witnessed me rubbing my belly? That remained a mystery. Regardless, her actions couldn't be excused. Neither my husband nor I harbored any inclination to forgive her. I recognize that you may be facing difficulties, but that doesn't justify your actions towards Alice. Regardless of the circumstances, endangering lives is never justified. My husband reiterated the obvious, attempting to reason with them. However, they seemed disinterested, each avoiding eye contact and appearing eager to conclude the conversation swiftly. It was evident they sought a quick resolution. Seeing their lack of remorse, I felt my condition deteriorate. Are we done here? I have just undergone surgery and I'm feeling unwell. If you continue causing a disturbance in this room, I'll have to call the police. Arguing wasn't going to resolve anything, and conversing with them felt too draining in my current state of recovery. After my husband ushered them out, I let out a heavy sigh. We had ample evidence as my husband had recorded their conversation. My mother-in-law, too, was unable to contain her fury over her daughter's actions, which had endangered both my life and that of her grandchild. And so, we made the decision to press charges against my sister-in-law. We filed a complaint with the police. Following her arrest, negotiations commenced through legal channels. However, my sister-in-law adamantly maintained her innocence to her lawyer. "I've done nothing wrong. This woman has been flaunting her pregnancy in front of me, causing me emotional distress while I struggle with infertility. She's not blameless, so she should consider settling." Initially willing to offer any sum of money, she later shifted her stance, asserting her innocence and suggesting we sweep the incident under the rug as a mutual fault. Though visibly intimidated upon encountering my husband in the hospital, she now dug in her heels, refusing to pay. Little did she know, our conversation in the hospital room had been recorded. When the evidence was presented, both their faces paled in realization. "Even with such clear evidence, you still claim innocence." "That won't fly," I remarked firmly, enduring their insults and refusing to entertain a settlement. In a fit of rage, my sister-in-law hurled the coffee from before her at us. Fortunately, it was cold, sparing us from burns. Their outrageous conduct and language in the office led to additional charges, compounding their troubles and necessitating higher compensation amounts. Attempting to soothe his irate wife, my brother-in-law exited the office with the assault charges against me and the current incident. The demanded compensation from my sister-in-law had escalated significantly. Upon informing my mother-in-law of the events, she expressed deep remorse, pledging, "I'm so sorry for my daughter's actions. You need not consider a settlement. I'll ensure she faces the consequences." Tears welled in her eyes as she apologized sincerely. I couldn't shake the feeling of dismay at witnessing a grown adult causing so much anguish to their own parents. My heart went out to my mother-in-law, bearing the brunt of her daughter's actions. Ultimately, my sister-in-law was ordered to pay a substantial compensation. Stunned by the sum, she bombarded me with calls, insisting we reduce it due to our shared culpability. I couldn't fathom how she could make such a plea after everything she had done. No matter how incessantly she called, our stance remained unwavering. No reduction, no settlement. Frankly, her calls became a nuisance, prompting me to request she cease. Her persistence led to me snapping at her, triggering her to lose her temper. Unbelievably, she stormed into my apartment, demanding my presence. "Hey, I know you're in there. Get out here now, coward," she shouted. As I lay on the sofa, still recovering from surgery, her relentless pounding on the door and the barrage of insults echoed through the apartment. "What in the world are you doing? Is everything all right? Your shouting is disturbing everyone. Please stop," I shouted back, though she persisted in her noisy tirade. Despite the late hour, there were elderly residents and families with young children in the building, and her disturbance was unwelcome. I couldn't help but wonder if she even considered the possibility of disturbing people who might be sleeping. With my husband still at work since my hospital discharge, I had been managing visits to my daughter while dealing with her unexpected arrival and the ensuing chaos. I was at my breaking point. "No matter how many times you come here, my stance won't change. Please refrain from visiting anymore," I implored, despite my weakened state. However, my sister-in-law remained fixated on a settlement, seemingly indifferent to my concerns. "I didn't intend for things to escalate like this, you know? Your actions pushed us to this point. It's audacious of you to conceive before me. Shouldn't you have been more thoughtful and waited until after us?" she retorted defensively. It appeared that she perceived pregnancy as some sort of contest. While I don't believe pregnancy should be seen as a competition or that conceiving first is more honorable, my sister-in-law, who struggled with infertility for years, seemed to view it through that lens. Though everyone holds different values, it's never justified to inflict harm on others. I understand your frustration about not being able to conceive, but that's no excuse for causing harm to others. I can't forgive you for putting my daughter in danger. You'll be held accountable for your actions, I asserted firmly. Above all, her actions had endangered my daughter, which was unforgivable. Just then, the distant sound of sirens pierced the air. "Well, if you're banging on someone's door and shouting at this hour, it's only natural that the police would be called," I remarked coolly. "What do you mean the police are here? Open the door. You have to hide me." Despite my sister-in-law's frantic pleas, I had no intention of shielding her. As the police arrived and began their inquiries, I provided my account of the situation. Just then, my husband returned home, and I quickly briefed him on the unfolding events. Recalling previous incidents, my husband decided to divulge the full truth to the authorities. Consequently, the police escorted my sister-in-law away in their vehicle. Later that evening, my brother-in-law contacted me to announce his decision to divorce my sister-in-law and implored me not to entangle him in the matter. A rather self-serving plea. Evidently, one of my husband's colleagues had overheard my brother-in-law's conversation at the hospital where I was hospitalized. Subsequently, workplace gossip circulated among female employees, leading to a tarnished reputation for my brother-in-law. Matters escalated, and the narrative eventually reached the attention of the HR department. Faced with the inevitable consequences, my brother-in-law opted for transparency, confessing to his misdeeds. Consequently, he was informed that he could no longer remain employed in the company and would be transferred to a regional office. Though he doesn't want to be dragged into any more trouble, I simply can't handle her problems anymore. Another slip-up and I'll lose my job. Please spare me from any more complications, he asserted before abruptly ending the call. Since then, he's remained silent. In the aftermath, we received a significant settlement from my sister-in-law. To ensure she couldn't intrude into our lives again, we changed our phone numbers and relocated. Even if she were to face dire circumstances and seek assistance, she'd have no means of locating us. Several months later, my daughter was discharged from the hospital unscathed, thriving, and healthy. Rumors circulated that my sister-in-law hadn't fared much better. Initially relying on the hospitality of friends, she overstayed her welcome, neglecting her shared expenses until she was ultimately evicted. Now, with nowhere to call home and debts looming, she's scraping by with part-time work.
I looked at the video playing on my phone and couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was footage from our home security cameras showing our bedroom. I have an app on my phone that lets me see what's happening at home when I'm not there. In the video, I saw my husband with another woman. They seemed very close, like more than just friends. Then, I heard their voices. You sure she doesn't suspect anything? Yeah. I've been following your instructions exactly. She has no idea. It's going perfectly. I can't believe it. They laughed together. Then they playfully got onto the bed. I couldn't believe it. The woman with my husband was actually my own sister. My name is Nancy Hadley. I'm 50 years old. My husband David is turning 55 this year. We've been married for 20 years and we don't have any children. We used to have a comfortable life because we both worked. But things changed about 10 years ago when David was diagnosed with early onset dementia. As time passed, David's memory problems got worse. He started forgetting important meetings with clients and even how to do his job. Work became really hard for him, and everyday tasks became a struggle. He'd forget where he put things, how to dress himself. And he'd often get lost and bump into things because he couldn't remember directions. Once, he even left the kettle on, which nearly caused a fire. So David and I decided to ask my sister, Anne, for help. She runs a care home, so we trusted her advice. We took David to a hospital she recommended for tests, and that's when the doctors told us he had early onset dementia. Because of this, David had to stop working, and now we have a caregiver from Anne's facility come to our home twice a week to help out. Nowadays, I'm the one bringing in the money for our family, working hard every day, I said with a sigh. Nancy, how's David holding up? It was the day our regular caregiver, Ms. Johnson, came over. Annie came along with her. And you came too. He's your husband after all, so I'm worried too. Ever since we started relying on Anne's help, she would often come over before I went to work. She's been looking after David like a brother ever since we got married because she always wanted a big brother when we were younger. She was really upset when David was diagnosed with dementia, even though she was supposed to be busy with work herself. I really appreciate her checking in on us like this. I'm so grateful to Anne and Ms. Johnson for helping me take care of David while I'm at work. If I didn't have my job, we'd have money problems, so I'm really thankful for them. But they can't come on weekends, so I'm the only one taking care of David then. I'm working during the week and looking after David on weekends, and I hardly have any time for myself. I didn't realize it before, but I must be really tired, I explained. A nurse who knew me from the hospital where I took David for his checkups noticed how tired I looked. Mrs. Hadley, taking care of your husband is tough, but you need some time for yourself to rest. You're right, I know that. I could ask Anne and Ms. Johnson for help if I really needed it, but I don't want to bother them anymore. Oh, by the way, there's a new nurse here who used to work at a dementia hospital in New York. Maybe she can offer some help. See, there she is, the nurse pointed out. When I followed the nurse's gesture, I couldn't believe what I saw. It was Amy, my best friend from college. Amy looked just as surprised as I felt. We hugged each other tightly, overjoyed to be reunited. Amy, who used to play softball in college, still looked sharp with her neat short haircut. "Nancy, you look exactly the same. And you haven't changed a bit, Amy. I'm so happy to see you." Amy shared that she had waited for her kids to grow up, ended her marriage, and come back to our hometown. "Just tell me when you're free for a coffee," she suggested. When David finished his test and came out of the examination room in his wheelchair, Amy seemed taken aback. "Oh, this is my husband, David. It feels like forever since we got married." "Yep, it's been quite a while," I agreed. Amy, crouching down to David's eye level in the wheelchair, stopped for a moment. "Is everything okay?" "I'm sorry, David. We met at your wedding once." "Really? I'm counting on you for future care. Thanks in advance." David smiled at her and replied. Amy seemed to be studying David with a thoughtful expression. Maybe seeing my confusion, she stood up with a smile. "I've looked after many patients like your husband before. So, if you ever need advice, I'm here for you." "I think that can help," Amy offered. "Yeah, I'll definitely count on you." "Thanks, Amy." We waved goodbye. After that, I bumped into Amy several times. Like when I went to pick up David's medicine or when his health worsened. Each time, Amy looked at me with worry, but I pretended not to notice and shrugged it off. A few months after reconnecting with Amy, David and I went to the hospital together. Just as David was called in for his examination, I heard someone call my name. When I turned around, there was Amy, looking serious. "Amy, is everything okay?" "David just went in for his exam. Can we talk for a moment?" "Yeah, sure," Amy replied, leading me to a counseling room. "Nancy, how are you managing with David? And are you worried about me?" "Thanks," I began, discussing David's recent health and how the constant caregiving was affecting me physically. Amy listened closely, and I thought she was simply concerned about my well-being. But then she said something unexpected. "Actually, Nancy..." What she told me next was hard to believe. About a week before we met again, Amy started, recounting a shopping trip where she saw Anne with a man she recognized. Anne's face was familiar as my sister, but Amy also thought she recognized the man. When Amy approached and Anne introduced him as her boyfriend, it wasn't until we met again at the hospital that I realized it was David, your husband. It all seemed so confusing. "That's really surprising. No wonder you seemed puzzled at the time," I remarked. Amy explained that she had seen Anne and David together in town a week before we crossed paths again. However, David didn't seem to notice Amy's presence at all. I looked quite different then. I had long hair and wore glasses. That might explain why he didn't recognize me, but still. "Also, there's something else bothering me," Amy continued. She noticed that David's behavior at the hospital didn't match someone with dementia. It felt unnatural, almost like someone pretending to have dementia. The man I saw in town was walking confidently, speaking clearly. He seemed perfectly healthy. Could there have been a mix-up? Maybe you mistook him for someone else? "I don't think so. You know, David has those distinct moles under his right eye, right? The man with Anne had them too. It's kind of a distinctive feature for a guy." "I'm sorry, I shouldn't talk about your husband like that." Amy apologized, realizing her comment might have been inappropriate. "But it's true, David does have those moles. It's not common to find someone else with the same face and moles in the same spot. So could it be that David has been pretending to have dementia for 10 years and is having an affair with Anne?" It was a shocking idea, but Amy seemed sincere. "Honestly, I don't think this hospital is very good," Amy confessed. "The doctors here aren't great, and I've heard some bad rumors too. Doesn't it seem odd that they have so many patients? So, I really think you should get David properly checked to see if he really has dementia," Amy said, looking serious. Amy's words struck me deeply. I went to a big store and bought a home security camera. I placed it in hidden spots in the living room and bedroom to secretly record what was happening while I was at work. I set it up to watch on my smartphone and checked in during breaks. To my surprise, David's behavior on camera was different from what he showed me. He didn't seem confused or lost. He was living quite normally. Plus, when Miss Johnson, who had asked to care for David, arrived, there was no sign of her taking care of him. I also discovered that Anne had been visiting my house frequently while I was away. Their conversations were clearly recorded on the footage. You're not getting caught pretending to have dementia, right, David? Anne asked. Yeah, pretending not to know the date or where things are is working perfectly, just like Anne suggested. Acting like I can't write or go outside, and mixing up day and night seems to be fooling Nancy. She's trusting, so she won't suspect a thing. And as for Miss Johnson, she's fine. She's a single mom and needs the money. I've been paying her more, and she's staying quiet, David explained. They laughed together, flirted, and then went to the bedroom. I was stunned when I saw the footage. I couldn't believe my own sister and husband were scheming behind my back. But the proof was right there on the camera. I felt lost, confronted with the undeniable truth. A few days later, I felt the need to speak with Miss Johnson, who had been looking after David. When I reached out to her, she said she could meet the following Saturday. I went to her apartment and showed her the footage. She looked defeated and apologized tearfully, admitting, "What you see in this footage is the truth. I've been lying to you all this time, and I'm truly sorry. I don't have a license, and I was struggling to find another job. Anne offered me a job with good pay, so I went along with her plan." Despite her need for money, Miss Johnson felt guilty for assisting Anne in deceiving someone. Because of her guilt, I was able to obtain her testimony. She also gave me copies of receipts, pretend to have dementia, and you take care of us while you're at work. We could meet as much as we wanted. Even Miss Johnson was hired by Anne to create an alibi. His words seemed to shift the blame onto Anne, portraying himself as a victim. But Anne's reaction was explosive. What on earth? David was just as involved in the plan, and now he's trying to dodge responsibility. That's cowardly. Shut up. You're the one who pushed me into this. I just went along with it, David fired back. My heart grew colder as they argued, completely exposed. I couldn't bear to witness this any longer. That's it, both of you get out. I decided to take drastic action. I threw them out of the living room window, along with their scattered clothes from Anne's purse, then shut the window. Despite their banging and pleas for explanation, I closed the curtains and ignored them. When they wouldn't stop, I sent a firm message on WhatsApp. Be quiet. If you don't leave now, I'll call the cops. Suddenly, they fell silent. Their constant visits and messages on WhatsApp grated on my nerves in the following days. So, I sold the house and moved to a weekly rental apartment. When David was diagnosed with dementia, I had changed the house title to my name. David, now retired, couldn't pay the mortgage anymore, and I made the change beforehand to avoid complications with decision-making authority in his condition. Selling the house unexpectedly fetched a good price, allowing me to buy an apartment with the saved money. Though I hadn't anticipated this situation, past Nancy had done well. I filed for divorce from David and claimed a fair share of assets. It wasn't about whether he could pay or not. It was a statement of, "You did this to me. I'll never forgive or forget it." After divorcing me, David remarried and now lives in Anne's house. However, it seems their relationship isn't going well. My assumption is that they were swept up in the excitement of their affair. But once they got married, reality hit them. They can no longer just be lovers living together. They have to face the ups and downs of married life, and it must be tough for them. Even if they consider breaking up, both of their parents have passed away, and the house we used to live in has been sold. They have no family to rely on and nowhere to escape, so they're left to deal with everything on their own. Frankly, I couldn't care less. I believe they got what they deserved. Thanks to Miss Johnson's revelation, Anne's facility lost its license and was shut down. It turns out the facility wasn't making enough money to repay the loans they took out when they opened, so Anne now has a lot of debt. It seems like a fitting punishment for a sister who stole her own sister's husband. As for the quack doctor who gave the fake diagnosis, he faced consequences too. After the incident, his staff, including Amy, quit one by one, making it impossible to keep his clinic open. It turns out he was issuing false medical reports for profit, just like he did for David, and this led to his downfall. Learning the truth shocked me. I realized how outrageous some doctors can be. But I also had to admit my own fault. I was too trusting. I took my sister's word and the quack doctor's claims without questioning them. According to Amy, I'm too kind and trusting. I don't like to doubt people. But now, I'm reflecting on that. I realize I need to be more skeptical and think for myself. Amy seems to have found a new job at a large general hospital in the neighboring town, and she's doing really well there. Her experience from working in a New York hospital is highly valued, and she's already earned the trust of her colleagues. She seems to be enjoying her work a lot. On Amy's recommendation, Miss Johnson also started working at the hospital cafeteria, which is great news. Amy's eyes light up whenever she sees my puppy playing with a ball. I brought him home about a month ago, and he's become my precious companion, comforting me after long days at work. Since I got him, Amy has been visiting my apartment more often. She claims it's because he's so cute. But I know she's also worried about me, even if she won't admit it. Even though I've lost my husband, I'm grateful to spend this wonderful time with my best friend. Being single and enjoying the company of another woman doesn't sound so bad after all. Hi, I'm Mei Ling, and I'm 29 years old. Growing up Asian American has its challenges, especially being Chinese American like me. I've faced some unfair treatment because of my background. I've learned to stand up for myself and not let discrimination bring me down. Life has taught me to be tough, so I can handle whatever comes my way. But sometimes people can still surprise me with their ignorance. Take my father-in-law, for example. He doesn't seem to understand how tough it can be to be different in America. Let me tell you about my family. My husband, Mateo, is from the Dominican Republic, and I'm Chinese American. We love exploring each other's cultures and traditions. Recently, Mateo's stepdad, Hiroshi, joined our family. He's also from East Asia like me, which I thought was cool. I was excited to have someone who understood my background. But things changed when Hiroshi came into our lives. Mateo and his mom, Sofia, started speaking more Spanish, especially when Hiroshi was around. At first, I didn't think much of it since Spanish is their first language. Plus, they weren't saying anything bad. I know because I speak Spanish too. You know, I wanted to surprise my husband by learning Spanish. He really appreciates it when people do things for him, so I thought learning his language would make us closer. I kept it a secret for longer than I planned because I was afraid to tell them I could understand what they were saying. Even though I was getting better at Spanish, I was still scared of making mistakes and embarrassing myself. Maybe my fear was a good thing because when Hiroshi came into the picture, Sofia and Mateo started speaking Spanish more often. I thought it was best not to speak Spanish during those times. I mean, imagine joining a family with different cultures and feeling left out by everyone. Out of respect for Hiroshi and because we both shared East Asian backgrounds, I kept talking to him in English. I found it a bit strange that they were speaking Spanish more, but I didn't think much of it. That is, until I started hearing insults in Spanish that really surprised me. I remember that day vividly, like it just happened. We were all gathered around the table, ready to enjoy a meal together. The food smelled amazing, and we were chatting happily. But then disaster struck. I accidentally spilled gravy everywhere when I reached for the gravy boat. It was like a river of regret flowing across the table. You can imagine the chaos that followed. Sofia, my mother-in-law, started swearing in Spanish. Even though I'm not fluent in Spanish, I could tell she was saying mean things about me. It hurt, but Mateo, my husband, stood up for me. He told his mom that her insults weren't okay. Then Sofia said something that broke my heart. She asked Mateo why he was defending me when she thought I couldn't understand what she was saying anyway. Those words hit me hard. It hurt even more than her insults earlier. I felt so embarrassed and shocked that she would say something like that. It felt like she was used to talking about me behind my back in her language. I choked on my water, feeling overwhelmed. But Hiroshi, my father-in-law, comforted me. He reminded me that everyone makes mistakes and accidents happen. He even said there was more gravy in the pot, trying to lighten the mood. Hiroshi didn't know that it wasn't the spilled gravy that left me breathless. It was Sofia's hurtful words questioning my worth. I couldn't shake off the doubt that crept into my mind. Did I hear her correctly? Was I losing touch with reality? I couldn't believe that my own mother-in-law, who should have been supportive, would speak about me like that. After dinner, haunted by Sofia's words, I needed confirmation. I asked a Spanish-speaking friend and even used Google Translate. Unfortunately, my fears were true. Sofia had intentionally been rude and disrespectful. I couldn't understand why she felt that way about me. I kept my discoveries to myself for now, deciding to watch our family dynamics and wait for the right time to address this. The next morning, as we sat at the breakfast table, there was an awkward silence. I sat quietly, thinking hard, while the others chatted as usual. Sofia and Mateo started speaking in Spanish, unaware of the impact their words had. Suddenly, Sofia said something shocking. "I regret marrying this old, stupid man," Sofia said, unaware that I understood her words. My heart sank as I heard her. Once again, Sophia had revealed her true feelings, ruining our mealtime harmony. Meanwhile, Hiroshi chuckled and said, "I should learn Spanish so I can understand what you two are always talking about." If only he knew the painful truth behind their laughter. Sophia and Mateo pretended it was all harmless teasing, hiding the hurtful gossip they were sharing right in front of him. But the gossip didn't stop there. Mateo and Sophia continued, each comment more hurtful than the last. Let me give you some examples. They mocked Hiroshi's accent, mimicking his attempts to pronounce certain words. They laughed at his cultural traditions, saying they were strange or unnecessary. And they made jokes about his age, saying he was past his prime. As I sat there, I felt more and more uncomfortable. It was like watching a cruel game where Hiroshi was the target of their teasing without even knowing it. My heart hurt for him, knowing he was being hurt by his own family. This wasn't the love and acceptance I hoped for when our cultures came together. In that moment, I promised myself I wouldn't stay silent anymore. Sophia might have said hurtful things about me, but I wouldn't let her treat this kind old man the same way. I knew I had to address the tension in our family to make them see the value of our diverse backgrounds and the importance of treating each other with kindness. As time passed, I became more determined to expose Mateo and Sophia's unkind treatment of Hiroshi. Armed with my phone, I started recording their hurtful conversations during meals. I wanted to show them their behavior and its impact. With each meal, I discreetly captured their words, knowing they would reveal the truth. As their insults grew harsher, Hiroshi started to notice something was wrong. He and I were constantly left out, and it was clear something needed to change. As Hiroshi felt more excluded, his lively spirit dimmed. I tried to guide our conversations in English to include everyone, but Mateo and Sophia always switched back to Spanish, shutting us out. Their gossip and insults towards Hiroshi ruined the atmosphere at meals. When I listened to the recordings, I realized something heartbreaking. Sophia had married Hiroshi for his money, regretting that she couldn't inherit his fortune until he passed away. I was shocked by her greed, and Mateo, my husband, not only joined in the insults but found them funny, supporting his mother's awful intentions. The realization hit me hard. How could I have missed their true colors? These were the people I trusted to embrace and celebrate our diverse family, yet they had betrayed that trust. I knew I had to do something, not just for Hiroshi's sake, but for the respect and love our family deserved. Late into the night, I listened to those recordings, steeling myself to confront Mateo and Sophia with the evidence of their cruelty. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I couldn't let them continue hurting us. As I planned my approach, I promised myself I wouldn't let their toxicity ruin our lives any longer. Hiroshi deserved better, and so did our family. Determined to make a change, I geared up to confront Mateo and Sophia about their hurtful actions. But before I faced them, I knew one thing. Hiroshi needed to hear the truth first. He deserved to know. Gathering my courage, I approached Hiroshi, sensing his heavy heart. With a comforting smile, I asked, "Hey Hiroshi, how are you holding up?" He sighed and met my gaze, his vulnerability clear. "Mei Ling, it's been tough, honestly. I'm having a hard time fitting into this new family setup. The constant use of Spanish makes me feel left out, like I don't belong. Maybe I should consider those Spanish classes after all." Understanding his struggle, I nodded sympathetically. "I hear you, Hiroshi. It's been bothering me too. But there's something important I need to tell you." He looked intrigued, curious about what I had to say. "What's on your mind, Mei Ling?" Taking a deep breath, I confessed the secret I'd been keeping. "Hiroshi, I understand Spanish. I've been following every conversation Mateo and Sophia have had. They didn't know because I never joined in on the Spanish talks. I kept it to myself because I felt nervous and embarrassed about my language skills, but I do understand them completely." Hiroshi looked surprised. "Why didn't he tell them? I'm sure they would have helped you with your Spanish." I smiled sadly. "You're probably right, Hiroshi. I was just nervous and embarrassed. I wanted to surprise Mateo once I learned enough Spanish to have a real conversation, but I kept delaying it, worried he wouldn't be impressed. Still, maybe it's a good thing I didn't tell them." "Why do you say that?" "By keeping this secret, I was able to hear their conversations, and what I heard wasn't good. He had been talking about you behind your back, saying hurtful things. The language barrier protected them, but now they'll have to face the consequences." Hiroshi looked confused and concerned. "What do you mean? What have they been saying about me?" I took his hands in mine, speaking firmly. "Hiroshi, They've been making fun of you, mocking you, and saying mean things about you. It's been happening for weeks, and it's terrible that they can talk about you like that." His eyes showed a mix of surprise, hurt, and gratitude. "I don't know what to say. Thank you for telling me the truth. I never thought they would do something like this." "What exactly have they been saying?" he asked, bracing himself for the harsh reality. "Hiroshi, I know this is hard to hear, but I have to be honest with you. Sophia married you for your money, and both she and Mateo are waiting for you to pass away so they can inherit your fortune." As my words sank in, Hiroshi's disbelief turned into shock and confusion. "No, Mei-ling, that can't be true. Sophia loves me, and Mateo loves me too. They wouldn't do that. Are you sure you're being honest with me? Maybe it's you who's trying to deceive me." With determination, I assured him, "Hiroshi, I wouldn't bring this up without evidence. I recorded their conversations, and you can hear it for yourself. Ask any Spanish-speaking person you know to confirm what they're saying." I then airdropped the recordings to Hiroshi's phone, letting him uncover the truth for himself. Days passed, and the tension between Hiroshi, Sophia, and Mateo grew thicker. I gave Hiroshi space to process everything. Then, one day, he pulled me aside, his face showing a mix of acceptance and gratitude. "I owe you an apology. I doubted you, blinded by my love for Sophia. But after talking to my Spanish-speaking friends and listening to those recordings, I believe you. I can't believe they said such awful things about me. What did I do to deserve this? I know, Hiroshi, it's a lot to take in, and I'm sorry, but I felt you needed to know the truth. I've decided to get an annulment. I'm bold, May. I can't waste time with people who don't care about me. It's just hard to believe you'll be leaving so soon." "Leaving sounds like the right move. I think you should do it. This will be my last night here. Tomorrow, I'll go and won't contact Sophia and Mateo until I'm ready to start the annulment process. But for now, I think I need a break. You deserve real love and peace, Hiroshi, and so do I." With that, Hiroshi and I hugged, and then we both went our separate ways. The next day, just as he said, Hiroshi was gone. He packed his things and left, leaving Sophia and Mateo confused and free to keep talking badly about him. As I put away the dishes, I could hear Sophia and Mateo in the nearby living room. Their insults towards Hiroshi made me furious. Why were they being so cruel? Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. With a surge of confidence, I decided to confront them about their hurtful behavior. Enough was enough. "I know exactly what you've been saying about Hiroshi in your secret Spanish conversations," I said firmly. Sophia's face went pale, and she looked shocked. Mateo tried to act innocent. "You don't know what you're talking about," he insisted. At that moment, I unleashed a side of me they had never seen before. Speaking fluent Spanish, I confronted them directly. "Don't underestimate me. I've understood everything you two have been saying for the past 3 weeks. You've been insulting and disrespecting Hiroshi since he entered our lives." Mateo looked embarrassed, avoiding eye contact. They were caught in their lies. Finally, Mateo spoke up, his voice filled with curiosity, regret, and perhaps even hurt. "Why didn't you tell me you could speak Spanish? You're really good." I gave a bitter smile. I was embarrassed by my imperfect Spanish, but now I see that it helped me uncover the truth about your true intentions towards Hiroshi. Their eyes widened in shock, struggling to comprehend the gravity of the situation. Sophia's voice shook as she asked, "What do you mean, Mei-ling?" I took a deep breath, revealing the truth bit by bit. "I've told Hiroshi everything. He's on vacation now, away from this toxic environment. And because of what he's learned, he's going to pursue an annulment. So you won't get the money." Confusion and panic filled the room as Sophia and Mateo realized the consequences of their actions. The realization that their pursuit of Hiroshi's wealth had been fruitless left them stunned. You see, Sophia and Mateo, greed and manipulation may have clouded your judgment temporarily. But in the end, the truth won out. Hiroshi's fortune will never be yours. Your betrayal shattered his love and trust. As the reality of their actions sank in, Sophia and Mateo faced the consequences of their greed and deceit. The facade they had built around Hiroshi crumbled, and their dreams of an easy fortune vanished. In that moment, I stood firm, knowing I had spoken up for what was right, even if it strained our family's fragile harmony. Unfortunately, the damage had been done, and tension lingered between Mateo, Sophia, and me. Realizing the toxicity of the situation, I knew I couldn't stay any longer. If they could treat Hiroshi like that, who knows what they said about me. Their true colors had been exposed, and I couldn't ignore the toxicity in our relationship. Quietly, I started planning my exit. I reached out to Hiroshi for guidance and support. He, being the kind soul he was, encouraged me and even offered financial help to start anew. He knew I deserved better than the toxic environment we were in. I waited for the right moment to tell them I was leaving. The tension in the house was thick, with Matteo and Sofia carrying the weight of their failed scheme. They were angry and resentful, hiding any remorse they might have felt. With my preparations complete, I gathered the courage to make a clean break. The perfect moment came, and with my bags packed and determination in my heart, I faced Matteo and Sofia. I calmly told them that their actions had destroyed the trust and love between us. Staying in such a toxic environment would only hurt us more. Their faces twisted with anger and regret as they realized the consequences of their behavior. In that moment, I made my decision to leave. Standing tall, I asserted my worth and declared my independence. Their attempts to persuade me otherwise were futile. I had made up my mind, and nothing could change it. With a final farewell, I walked away from the toxicity that had plagued our lives, stepping into a new chapter. As I journeyed towards self-discovery and freedom, I carried the lessons learned with me. No longer would I be confined by others' expectations and judgments. I had found my voice and would use it to shape my destiny, leaving behind the negativity that once consumed me. It was time to embrace my strength and forge a path true to myself.